So I originally intended for this video to be about another car that was in the IMSA GTP Championship, specifically the Eagle Mark III. But because the mod for Assetto Corsa is crap, I lost the inspiration to do it for the time being. I'll just have to wait until someone else possibly makes an Eagle Mark III mod that works well, or wait until the original mod author actually returns to this mod and fixes the car's issues. So instead, I'll tell you about an obscure Group C car I didn't even realize existed until the mod author Assetto Turismo released a mod for it. What is it, you ask? Well, I'll show you. This is the Lola T9210, and if it's the first time you're hearing of it, well, I was right there with you not too long ago. I mean, I knew of the Lola company, but I never really knew they made more than just chassis in the Group C era of prototype racing. If you want to know what I mean, examples of Lola-made chassis are the Nissan R90CK and the Mazda Lola T616, both which were for the Group C rules. And they also did a host of IMSA GTP chassis as well. They're the ones who made the Chevy Corvette GTP's chassis. They were also the ones that made the first iteration of the Nissan GTP ZX Turbo, which was then named the Lola T810. Hearing that Lola actually made a full race car and not just a chassis in this era of racing sparked my interest harder than Davy Jones hitting the barrier in the XJR14. Too soon? Anyway, enough of the background on the Lola cars itself. This is a video about the history of the 9210, not Lola. So let's get started. In all the years of the Group C era, Lola had a lot of success with its cars. The aforementioned Nissan R90CK, which ran both in the All Japan Sports Car Championship and the World Sports Car Championship, was a good example there. And another was the Chevrolet Corvette GTP, which was their most recent success. However, ending the 1991 season, they were struck with a problem. They didn't have a major manufacturer to support their sports car development. That made them decide to develop a complete racing package for customers to purchase. It's to my knowledge, the first time they did something like that. It allowed them to fully design the car the way they wanted rather than needing to abide by any of the construction requirements of another manufacturer. They were free to do whatever they wanted within the rules of Group C. And boy, did they take advantage of it. And a warning here, I go off a lot about the development of the car, more so than the other cars that I've done, just to let you guys know. So, starting off, chief designer Louis Huet Huidekoper, I'm probably butchering that name, I apologize. He went through test after test with scale models in the wind tunnel, developing a car that had way higher downforce numbers than the competition had, while achieving a fair amount of drag, which gave the car a very high lift-to-drag ratio. Basically, it means it achieves a whole lot of downforce without that extra aerodynamic grip keeping the car from going at the usual competitive speeds for Group C, which was a very good thing. Some key points on what gave it that high downforce with a lower amount of drag than usual was the very sharp nose and the two-level wing, as opposed to their usually smooth arcing nose and a single-element wing that Lola usually put on their chassis for other manufacturers. The wedge-like shape in the front allowed for a much smoother transition of air from the nose to the rest of the car, as opposed to the rounded noses of like the Peugeot 905 or the Toyota TS010, both of which were the T9210's competitors in the single WSP season they ran. The dual-element wing additionally provided double the rear downforce of a single-element wing without doubling the drag. I don't really know the exact science about this. I've never really studied aerodynamics in my life, so you need to ask really one of the people who do to explain it further. I've just noticed dual-element wings are a lot better for maximizing rear downforce, though I could be wrong, in which case just let me know in the comments below. I'd rather keep to the facts as much as possible while providing my own experiences and knowledge as assistance. Anyways, back to the car's development. So much like the MXR01 in my previous video, the Lola T9210 utilized a Judd V10 engine, specifically the Formula 1 spec GV10. With its compact nature, it took up less space, allowing tighter bodywork to be designed around it. Additionally, the engine produced enough power that it could contend with the other entrants in the 1992 World Sports Car Championship in that department. Unfortunately, the T9210's problems weren't in the power or aerodynamic department. But to talk about that, I also need to talk about the races it participated in. So, Lola only produced 3 of these cars, and 2 of these went to Euro Racing, the team that used them in the 1992 WSPC. But something with such a huge potential for success suffered mistake after mistake, mechanical failure after mechanical failure. The first race it participated in didn't bode well for the 2 cars, as both suffered gearbox failures. One couldn't start the race, while the other DNF'd. The gearbox failures became a reoccurring trend with the 2 Euro Racing Lolas, unfortunately. Silverstone saw another Lola suffer a gearbox issue, however the other 9210 finished in 5th place. Though in a cruel twist of fate, the car was disqualified, as a post-race inspection found an illegal fuel compound used in the car. Already, this wasn't really looking good. The 24-hour Le Mans once again saw 1 car suffer gearbox issues and DNF. The second 9210 managed a 13th place overall, and much to at least my personal delight, the car managed to not get disqualified this time around. Unfortunately, they were 80 laps behind the lead lap. But hey, baby steps. Managed to qualify at the end first before shooting to the top, right? But unfortunately, the remaining races weren't any better. The next race on the calendar was the 500 kilometers of Donington Park, in which 1 car DNF'd due to a fire starting in the car's cockpit. Just thinking about that has to be scary for the driver if he was inside when that happened. Thankfully, if there was a driver inside, there hasn't been anything I've found on the person getting injured, so there's that at least. As for the other car, it went on to get their highest position in the championship ever of 4th place in a race. The following race at Suzuka saw another car DNFing, this time from the Judd engine failing. The second car went on to achieve another 5th position for the Euro Racing team. However, following that race, their luck completely ran out, because at the final race of the season, the 500 kilometers of Manicourt, both cars failed technical scrutineering, leaving both cars unable to participate. That left Euro Racing 5th in the championship, and while that sounds high, there were only 6 teams participating in that class of racing. And following the end of the season, the World Sports Car Championship itself dissolved, leaving the cars without a solid series to race under the Euro Racing banner. Additionally, the Euro Racing team itself went bankrupt, forcing them to sell their 9210s. Now, you might think that was the end of the story for the 9210, but you would be wrong. Notice how I said that they made 3 cars? Well, that third one didn't really get any action until 3 years after the first 2 were sold from Euro Racing. Racing under the McNeil Engineering team, it participated in the InterSeries Championship. Now, I don't really know the specifics about this series, so I only have a limited amount of information to give background on this. From what I can find, the series mostly saw modified Formula-style race cars that removed the open-wheel styling and went for a more tried-and-true closed-wheel design. They allowed Group C cars to participate alongside them, which made for an interesting visual. It's possible this inspired the 2 styles of cars for the LMP era, but I could be wrong. Anyways, the car achieved some pretty good results in its first year. It first had a DNF at the race at Most in Czechoslovakia. It didn't really bode well, however they made for a pretty good showing at their following race at Siegerland, getting a 6th place. Contrary to their jaunt at the WSPC, the only direction they could go was up at this point, because for the last 2 races of the 1995 InterSeries Championship, they got a 2nd place at Donington Park and a 3rd place at Jarama, or Harama. I don't know the pronunciation, I apologize. While it isn't 1st place, both positions are still pretty good for a car that could only get as high as 4th in the WSPC. Of course, it didn't have the same amount of mechanical issues as the other 2 cars did, so I suppose that had something to do with it. With the competition consisting of other Group C cars and modified Formula cars, I suppose one could argue that this is a more accurate representation of how well the car performs when everything is going great for the car. Although, they're racing against Formula 1 cars, so, I mean, there are some differences. The following year of the InterSeries Championship, the Lola T9210 got its first win of its life at Brands Hatch. This second year of racing in the InterSeries Championship, it seemed they were coming out swinging. The following race at Moss yielded a 2nd place again, which was a redemption for their DNF last year, Only thing that would have made it better would be a first place there. The following race at Siegerland, it was only used as a backup car, but the following race at Zeltweg, it actually participated. It's just a shame I can't find the results of that race anywhere. The last race of the 1996 InterSeries Championship, racing at Albacete, yielded another first-place result for the Lola T9210. A perfect way to tie up that championship, if you ask me. Going into the 1997 championship, I think most would expect a smashing performance from the car, am I right? Well, unfortunately, you'd be mistaken to think so, because it only scored positions twice in the 5-race series. It scored a 7th place at the first race at Spa, didn't arrive to the 2 following races at Donington, DNF'd out of the 4th race at Most, and achieved its last first place at the Hungaroring. After that less than stellar final season, McNeil Engineering decided to switch over to the International Sports Car Racing Series for the 1998 season. With the new series came some new rules to go along with them, meaning they had to change the car around. To follow the sports racer rules of the series, which were kind of similar to the Le Mans prototype rules, they had to turn the car into an open cockpit race car, which meant ditching the roof and doors. They kept the windshield for the most part, as it was needed for aerodynamic purposes, but other than that, the roof and doors were just axed. Other alterations, including removing the hood scoop and putting vents on the side of the cockpit to feed air into the engine instead, and adding a roll bar. After such alterations, they named it the Lola 981. However, it wasn't an official Lola designation and more just a name the team gave it. This season would be the most unsuccessful the car ever had. I mean, sure, the WSPC had one car always DNFing while the other completed the races, but even then, at least the car completed the race. During the International Sports Car Racing Series, the car completed a total of 2 races in its single season in the series. It was full of technical issues, and it only got worse when they introduced a new larger displacement, Judd GV4 V10, which never seemed to work well enough. And the end of the season, they decided to pull out of the International Sports Car Racing Series. After that failure of a season, McNeil Engineering decided to return the Lola back to its closed cockpit design and brought back the original Judd GV10 the car came with in the first place. Once more christened the Lola 9210, the car returned to the world of the InterSeries Championship for 2 more years. It continued to regularly gain second-place positions in races, with a few upsets like 10th place in the second race at the 2000 Most event, DNFing on the first race at the 2001 Dijon event, and the 2001 A1 Ring event at the end of the series. Like I said, the car frequently finished in second place the entirety of the 2 seasons, and managed to get a first place at 2 different instances of the 2001 A1 Ring events. The first time during the first race of the May event, and the second time during the second race of the season finale in September, giving the car the perfect end to its full racing career. The car was just an amazing concept. If I said there was some potential with the Nissan NP35, the Lola T9210 had loads of potential. If the car had solved the issues with the gearbox failing, I'm sure the 2 Lolas contesting the WSPC could have been placed even higher. But, unfortunately, they made the car too late. The WSPC was on a slow but sure decline. Had this car been possibly made a year earlier, it could have been able to solve the gearbox problem with time to properly compete with the Peugeot 905s and the Toyota TS010s that dominated the top of the grid at that final year, possibly even allowing Lola to contest the 24-hour Le Mans for the years that followed at the end of the WSPC with that car. However, in the end, it's just all speculation. No one really knows for sure if it would make any difference. One thing's for sure, though, despite just learning about this car, it's quickly shot up to be one of my favorite Group C cars of all time. And who knows, maybe this video might have done the same thing for you. Welcome to the end of the video. If you made it this far, I want to say thank you very much for watching, or even listening to the stuff. This video in particular was really fun to make, compared to the other 2. I had a blast driving the car virtually for all the B-roll footage that you see. Researching the car allowed me to learn a whole lot more than I initially thought I would learn, with the entire existence of the InterSeries Championship being chief among them, and researching the car itself was a blast. Like I said earlier, this car quickly became one of my favorites, and I hope if any of you who watched this that didn't know existed, I hope it brought a newfound respect of the car for you guys. And if not, I hope you at least enjoyed the content of the video, found it informative. And I have to say thanks to Assetto Turismo, the person who made this car and many other prototypes that I use in this video and others. If you want to drive these cars yourself on Assetto Corsa, be sure to check his Patreon out. This isn't sponsored, but he does amazing work, and I just wanted to recognize that. Anyways, if you liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like on the video and maybe subscribe for more videos like this that I'll make in the future. If you have any comments or criticisms, be sure to leave it in the comments section below. And with all that said, I hope you have a good day, night, whenever you view this, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye!